Hello parents and carers, my name is Miss Dolan and I'm an assistant head teacher at Challney High School for Girls. We would like to take a few minutes to take you through some important information regarding your daughter's GCSEs. As you'll be aware, in January the government announced that GCSEs and A-levels would not be taking place this summer 2021 and teacher assessed grades would be used. These are grades that must be submitted to the exam board following a process of quality assurance. The exam board will then award a grade against a national standard set by themselves. On the next slide, I have taken you through the process we must follow as a school in the submission of these grades to the exam board before they award their grade. This is a very anxious time for all, so it's important there is a shared understanding regarding the process and what this entails. This information has already been shared with your daughters, so hopefully this will provide some clarity for yourselves. Teacher assessed grades submitted to the exam board must be based on evidence. That means we have to have the actual evidence and the data to support the grade that's submitted. The evidence must also be across as much of the content and skills and techniques that have been delivered over the 2-year duration of the course. So if a student hasn't covered the content because of lockdown, they will not be assessed on that and we do not have to provide evidence for that. But we have to provide evidence to show as much of the specification and the skills and techniques that have been delivered over the course. Evidence can include mock exams, coursework or other formal pieces of work. These are pieces of work that have been undertaken in exam conditions or test conditions or supervised conditions, so we know that that work and that evidence is the students. Teachers will use evidence to support the GCSE grade, but the grades cannot be given without consistent evidence. So a student has to have achieved a grade consistently for them to be awarded that grade. So for example, doing particularly well in one test or one piece of work does not mean to say that that is the grade that they'll be awarded, because that may not be the consistent grade that they've achieved in all of the assessments. So for example, if 10 pieces of assessments, 10 pieces of evidence are being used, 9 of them are a grade 5, 1 of them is a grade 6. The grade 5 is the consistent grade. Now this has already started and will continue. Students are being provided with more assessment opportunities, and this is particularly important because this might provide staff with the evidence that is needed to support a more consistent grade. The grades will then be submitted to the exam board and they will be determined against a national standard set by the exam boards, subject to internal and external assurance. So I've just taken you through an overview regarding the collation of teacher assessed grades and the submission of these to the exam board. What I'm now going to do is take you through a document that has just been released by JCQ, which is the Joint Council for Qualifications. And this provides guidance for students, parents and guardians around GCSE grades. I've broken the document down into sections and I will take you through section by section again to make sure there is clarity around this information that has just been shared. This is the timeline that has just been released by JCQ and I've highlighted the key dates that are most relevant to you in red. So if we look at March, we're right at the end of March, and as you know, JCQ have just published the guidance, which is the document that I'm currently sharing with you. Moving on to April, from the 12th to the 30th of April, this is the window for schools, so centres, to submit their policy regarding the collation and submission of teacher assessed grades and all of the procedures that will be followed to make sure that a fair, reasonable and carefully considered judgment of a student's performance will be made across a range of evidence. Moving on to May, from the 26th of May to the 18th of June, this is the window for schools to start submitting their teacher assessed grades to the awarding organisations, and the final deadline for that is the 18th of June. From the 18th of June to the 16th of July, the awarding organisations will then complete their quality assurance and they will finalise the grades with the exam centres. Then on the 12th of August, and this date has been brought forward, GCSEs will go live. So your daughters will be able to receive their GCSE results on the 12th of August. This part of the document is a summary of what I've already shared with you at the start of this presentation, where I took you through how teacher assessed grades would be submitted. As you know, teachers will initially determine the grades, but that will be purely based on evidence, so staff must have the evidence to support the grade they submit, and it is the consistent grade that will be submitted. Prior to submitting those grades to the exam board, layers of quality assurance will have taken place within the school. As you know, a range of evidence can be used, and the evidence that we will be using to support the grades will be formal pieces of evidence where we know that work is that student's work. So, for example, that could be mock exams, internal tests, extended pieces of writing. As I've also already explained, as a school we are trying to provide more opportunities for students to undertake assessments or tests or exams, and that's hopefully to provide us with more evidence that we may need to support a consistent grade. Your daughters are already aware of the assessments and when they're taking place and the importance of these, so it's really important they continue to commit to these. If your daughter was absent, for example when the mock exam took place, and this piece of evidence is being used, then she will be given the opportunity to resit that. And that's to make sure that there is a fair and consistent approach to all students with all the evidence that is being used to support the teacher assessed grade. As I've previously mentioned, no single piece of evidence will necessarily be more important than another, as teachers will be using a range of evidence across the 2 years and across as much of the content that has been delivered. When it comes to determining grades, as I've mentioned prior to this, consistency is key. So once all the evidence is selected and the assessments are complete, teachers will then decide on an overall grade to submit, and they will do that objectively. So if your daughter is performing consistently at a grade 5, then that is the grade that will be then submitted to the exam board. What happens after my teacher determines my grade in a subject? Well, once a teacher has determined your daughter's grade, it will be reviewed by other teachers in the school, and that will be in line with the school's policy. Regarding reasonable adjustments, access arrangements and special consideration requests will not apply in the usual way this summer because obviously the girls are not taking exams. With regards to access arrangements, the students undertook a set of mock exams in November-December time. So students that would normally have access arrangements had those for those exams, and those exams will be being used as a piece of evidence. With regards to continuous assessments that are currently taking place, again, if your daughter normally has access arrangements, those arrangements are being provided for her in the additional assessments that are being undertaken at present. Please be reassured that everyone will be working very hard to make sure that your daughter is issued with the correct grade, because the evidence that will be used to support the teacher assessed grade will be your daughter's evidence based on her current performance and the most consistent grade that she's achieving that will be submitted to the exam board. If you do, however, believe that there has been an error in determining this grade, so for example, an administrative error in the grade that's been submitted, you do have the right to appeal. To make that decision, you can request the school's centre policy, which will be readily available on the school's website from the 30th of April. The sources of evidence that were used to determine the grade, along with the grade associated with them, and any details of special circumstances, for example, access arrangements, if they are relevant. Stage 2 is an appeal to the exam board. If you still don't think that your daughter's grade is correct after the centre review is complete, you can ask the school to appeal to the exam board. They will then decide whether the school's judgment is accurate or not, whether the school followed the correct procedures, or whether the exam board made an administrative error. It is important to remember though, if you decide to appeal, whether it's stage 1 through the centre or stage 2 via the exam board, it is possible that your daughter's grade could go down as well as stay the same or go up. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this has given you a bit more clarity and reassurance around the whole process. Please also be assured that we are doing our utmost to make sure that your daughters get the grades that they deserve, and thank you for your continued support.